They thought an eviction notice would scare me. Instead, I slid a century-old water rights deed across the table and walked away. 35 shiny homes sat on land that wasn't theirs. So I opened the dam. And when the water flowed, justice flowed with it. My name's Jake Morrison, Army Corps of Engineers, and the third-generation owner of a patch of Texas land my grandfather bought in the 1950s. He built a small earth dam back in '78, not to make money, but to keep cattle watered and neighbors alive through dry spells. To Pops, water wasn't just survival. It was community. Every summer storm that filled the dam meant food on tables down the valley. He always told me, one day, son, this water will be worth more than oil. Protect it. I didn't know how true that was, until the day I came back from deployment and saw strangers digging up my land. Because what my grandfather built as a lifeline, someone else saw as an opportunity. And I knew, deep down, that dam was about to do what it was born to do. Her name was Margaret Maggie Thornwell, HOA president. The kind of person who drove a white BMW to the mailbox and called it exercise. Perfect tennis outfits, perfect lawn, perfect fake smile. And behind her stood her husband Rick, city councilman with a knack for slipping zoning changes through when no one's looking. On paper, they looked like community leaders. In reality, they were predators dressed in polo shirts. Their HOA, Willowbrook Estates, had turned my quiet back acres into construction sites. They didn't just build cul-de-sacs. They built them on my family's land. While I was overseas, serving my country, Maggie filed an adverse possession claim. A legal loophole that lets you steal land if you maintain it long enough. They saw my absence as abandonment. So when I rolled down that gravel driveway expecting to see pasture, I found bulldozers carving up my grandfather's creek. And Maggie? She just smiled sweetly and said, "Welcome home, soldier. You should have stayed closer to it." I walked across land that should have been mine, but it felt like a stranger's. Stakes in the ground, surveyors with clipboards, cement trucks lined up like invaders. The creek that fed Pop's dam, diverted. Drying. Every inch of that property told a story, and Maggie was rewriting it in concrete. My boots crunched on the gravel, and anger burned hotter with every step. That dam wasn't just dirt and stone. It was 45 years of stewardship. It was Pop's legacy, his gift to the valley. And these people treated it like a decorative pond for their backyard landscaping. When I demanded answers, Maggie's voice dripped with poison-sweet politeness. "We're improving the community. You should be thanking us." But watching the waterline drop inch by inch every day, I realized this wasn't about landscaping. They were bleeding my land dry, one stolen gallon at a time. I tried fighting fair. Hired a lawyer. He quoted me 85 grand just to start the challenge. Meanwhile, Rick had already slipped zoning changes through city council, reclassifying my land from agricultural to residential. Conflict of interest? Of course. Did anyone care? Not in their world. Then the real harassment began. HOA safety patrols parked at my gate, writing down license plates. Fake citations appeared in my mailbox. My farmhouse was suddenly unsightly, my tractor too noisy. Building inspectors, fire marshals, animal control, one after another, all randomly showing up, writing tickets. But the dirtiest blow? They filed a wellness check through Veterans Services. Claimed I was unstable. That I might be dangerous. Imagine serving your country overseas, only to come home and be painted as a threat in your own town. Maggie didn't just want my land. She wanted to break me. And for a while, I'll admit, it almost worked. Nights got longer. Bank account got thinner. Neighbors whispered. But here's the thing about veterans. Pressure doesn't crush us. It sharpens us. And when they tried to drown me in paperwork, I remembered something Pops once said, "You can fight men, but you win with water." Digging through courthouse records, I found gold. Pop's original dam permit, signed by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. That meant federal jurisdiction. Not even Rick's city council tricks could override it. And deeper in the files, something even better. A 1923 water rights deed. My great-grandfather bought senior water rights to Willow Creek long before subdivisions or zoning boards existed. Those rights were older than the county itself. Suddenly, the game changed. They hadn't just stolen dirt. They'd stolen federally protected water. I called my old buddy Tony, now with the EPA. He didn't even let me finish before saying, "Jake, if they're diverting a creek without permits, that's a federal offense. Document everything." So I did. Photos, measurements, timestamps, trail cams on construction crews. Every drop of water missing from the dam had a record. And when I saw Maggie bragging at an HOA meeting about safeguarding the community from unstable individuals, I just smiled. Because I finally knew how this would end. Not with lawyers. Not with votes. With water. I wasn't fighting alone anymore. Mrs. Chen, my neighbor, whose garden had dried up since the creek was stolen, stood by me. Miguel Santos, whose farm relied on the same water, brought old photos proving his family had irrigated with Willow Creek since the 1800s. Each story was the same. Families pushed out. Gardens withered. Wells dry. Maggie's HOA wasn't building a community, they were choking one. Together, we formed a coalition. Farmers, gardeners, environmentalists, people who'd been ignored too long. And every one of them had a piece of evidence that built the bigger picture. What Maggie thought was just one stubborn veteran standing in her way was quickly turning into an army. By late summer, storm clouds gathered. Heavy rains were forecast, the kind Pops designed the dam to handle. And I knew this was the moment. I spent nights in the workshop oiling ancient hydraulic gears, installed flow meters, checked spillways, calculated everything down to the gallon. If I opened the gates, water would return to its rightful path. EPA agents were on their way. Reporters had been tipped off. Neighbors planned to watch. Maggie rallied her troops too: live streams, protect our kids signs, private security guarding the subdivision. The stage was set. On my kitchen table, I laid out Pop's handwritten journal, a map of the watershed, and the federal deed. The plan was simple. At dawn, I'd restore Willow Creek to where it belonged. But as I looked at the storm rolling in, one thought kept me awake. What if Maggie tried one last dirty trick? At sunrise, I stood at the spillway controls. Rain tapped the steel like a war drum. Behind me, neighbors gathered in silence. Across the fence, Maggie's crowd filmed me like I was some criminal about to commit a crime. With a steady hand, I turned the wheel. The gates groaned, then released with a deep metallic sigh. And then, water. It wasn't chaos. It was beauty. A silver rush carving its way back into the dry creek bed, flowing exactly where it was meant to flow. Willow Creek lived again. Neighbors cheered. Miguel knelt, scooping the first handfuls with shaking hands. Tears cut through the dust on Mrs. Chen's cheeks. Meanwhile, Maggie screamed, "He's flooding our homes. Arrest him." But the water never touched her houses. It stayed within the natural creek bed, documented by federal inspectors standing feet away. For the first time in months, I breathed easy. Because Pops was right. Water always finds its way. The aftermath hit fast. Federal investigators confirmed every violation: unpermitted water diversion, insurance fraud, zoning corruption. Rick was dragged into hearings. Maggie's reputation shattered live on local TV. Construction halted overnight. Banks froze funding. Homeowners realized their dream houses were built on lies and worthless without legal water access. One by one, Maggie's allies disappeared. Even her private security backed off when arrests started rolling in. The same people who'd waved "Protect Our Kids" signs were now asking me how to join the water coalition. Funny thing about bullies. Once their power dries up, they have nothing left. The creek runs free now. Gardens bloom. Farms thrive. Kids swim where McMansions were supposed to stand. I restored Pop's farmhouse, and every evening I bring a mason jar of creek water to his grave. The water's still singing, I tell him. Sometimes justice doesn't come from courtrooms or lawsuits. Sometimes, it comes from letting nature speak louder than corruption. And when that water flowed, it didn't just wash away lies. It carried a message. This land, this water, this community will never be stolen again.